Podcast here with Jensen Reddick and Steve Chorney. Second episode. We're once again sponsored by Fresh Meadows Golf Course. If you're not golfing at Fresh Meadows, it's probably not worth playing. We also have a new sponsor here, Steve, on the show. We got Morning Wood Company right here, located in Elmhurst, Illinois. The guys at Morning Wood have been really good to us, making anything from bags to, bags right now only, but I know they're expanding soon. So, Steve, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, Jensen, York Cross Country, they had the privilege of attending an after-hours sponsored tailgate today at the Glenbard West Regional earlier today. Actually, I probably shouldn't say earlier today. Now it's actually past that, and it's Sunday right now. So, but that's all right. That's right. So yesterday, the Glenbard West Regional, there was an after-hours tailgate. We actually had a chance, thanks to the production staff. We actually went live at the regional. So here's a little live segment from the regional. All right, thanks, Will and Cam. Setting up a live studio.
After hours tailgate here right before the regional meet.
We are live at Camera Park in Glendale Heights. We are here with fellow attendant and your cross country runner, Frank Temple. Frank, how do you think it's looking out here?
It's looking pretty good. Weather, it's pretty cold, but everyone will run well. But, the old York team's looking really dangerous. They pulled up in the bus, and I just knew. They've got in their hearts today, I just like to thank my mom, my dad, and my friend Aiden Malefchek for getting me on this podcast. I also like to thank my two hosts, Steve and Jenny.
All right, there were amazing things that happened at the regional, and there were some bad things, but I think that just kind of puts a positive tone on the direction that the York Cross Country program is headed right now, Jensen.
Yeah, for sure. So, quite a few good regionals to watch, but really the biggest competition was definitely the Glenbard West Regional, which we had a chance to go to. We and Warrenville South and York, really the only two contending for the championship. I believe the end score was 25-31. It was a close match, Steve. Six York runners and 5 Wien Warrenville South. That made up the top 11, or the first 11 finishers. So when you look at it, really, it was kind of like a dual meet, really, wasn't it?
There's all the teams in the regional, but the other teams didn't matter. Do you think Glenbard North was going to really put a dent into the Dukes of York? I don't really think so. And so it was really mainly just two teams, Wheaton Warrenville South and York. And the score, 25-31. It was a dual meet. And it's, the York had a really strong Beat South motto, and it didn't really shine today, but, there's always a sectional next week. And, Jensen, I see your hand raised, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, Steve. So, not to toot our own horn or anything, but I believe last episode we did say there's gonna be a lot of orange and green at the front of the pack, and as it turned out, there really was. So, before we get into the Glenbard West Regional in depth, let's just cover a few of the other regionals really quick. Sandburg. Let's start with the St. Charles East Regional. Supposedly, according to Mile Split, so take this with a grain of salt, but the number one team in the state, St. Charles East. They did pretty well in the regional, but really no other competition. And looking at their regional, I really would have thought they would have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bob Liking dropped back a bit, and I believe Aiden King was the first finisher with north of 15 minutes time, which that's just not how they've been running lately.
And you know what? I was reading. You got to catch up on through other news sources. I was reading the Elmhurst Independent. There was this nice article of York winning the conference championship. And, Coach Kern says, what happens, to the fruit that, ripens early? It spoils. I think you saw that today. St. Charles East, if they're the team that they say they are, and the team that Mile Split ranks them to be, they should have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But they didn't. Their point score is in the 20s. And, that's just, it puts a damper on what the program thinks it could be. And, I know we want to point back to our later, what we said in our first podcast is St. Charles East, they choke this time of year. They run strong in the beginning, but they've never ran a past of running really good, in the playoffs. And, I know we have some fans out there who hate the term the playoffs, but it's what this is. Every single, it's the playoffs right now. Oh, and we are having lights flashing in the studio right now.
Oh, gosh. I'm sensing a little power outage here. Jeez, boys. Let's just keep it moving. The mics are on. We're good. Keep moving, boys. Let's go.
All right. Thanks, Cam. Thanks, production staff. But
Production staff has got us covered once again.
yeah, we just wanted to give a little shout out to the production staff right now. Cam, back
He's been
here.
working hard for us all day.
Oh yeah, and all night too.
Actually, I will add that conference meet at Barons Park was only 2.96 miles, and at the Glenbard West Regional, that was only 2.88. So, like Jensen said, with about mile split, take that with a grain of salt. I just want to let you guys know we're not trying to false report anything. We're a very honest podcast here. We just want to let you know the exact distances and all that. So just adding that as the production stuff.
And unlike Mile Split, we like to pride ourselves on being an unbiased media source here. Mile Split, they have a lot of bias. But anyway, going back to the St. Charles East thing.
No, Jensen, 1 second. I actually want to say, people have been questioning, the bias. But, according to a recent study, 99.9% of all Americans across the United States ranked After Hours Podcast as the number one unbiased news source in America.
Actually, Steve, breaking news, it's actually 100%.
So
the producer just filled in.
We just did the math, new math coming in, new numbers coming in. It's actually 100% of everybody in America believes that After Hours Podcast is the number one most unbiased podcast, and number two, they're the number one in the world. That's just the second number one. That's what I meant by number two.
And that's so refreshing considering we have corrupt news organizations like Mile Split giving us false representations of where things are really at. Thank God for the honest ones out there, right, Jensen?
Yeah, for sure. So, just going back, St. Charles East. Like we said earlier, they're starting to die out a little bit, and it kind of reminds me of a football team that I've actually watched over the years, the University of Michigan. Commonly known, I'm sure most of our viewers have heard of the University of Michigan football team. Every year they come in thinking they're this, we're going to win the national championship. But, they're like, bring it on. In the first 5 weeks of the season, they're really good. They play these bad teams. They smoke them. They're really good. But then you know what happens week 5, 6, 7, Steve?
What, Jensen?
They play teams like Ohio State, Penn State, and they just get whooped and whooped. Being down, and next thing you know, they lose 65-30 to an Ohio State team that they should have beaten. But same thing can be applied to St. Charles East.
Jensen, I'm sniffing here. I think that St. Charles East might just be the Michigan, and I don't know. Call me crazy, but I think that York just might be that Ohio State. They come in and they just dominate. That's just who they are.
And since we're talking about rankings right now, we want to give After Hours. Part of our thing is we have power rankings. For the teams in the state right now. So we're gonna give our top 5 rankings in the state right now. So Jensen, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, sure. So we'll go a little backwards order. We'll go 5th place. And I know Steve may not agree with me on this one, but I'm going to go Hersey. So, Hersey, obviously leading by Josh Methner. Recently committed to Notre Dame. I honestly believe there's a good chance that kid can break 14 minutes in the state meet. He's just a fantastic runner. Maybe not for sure, but there's a really good chance he gets first place in the state meet. And I think that they have a good 1-2 punch. But besides that, they don't have much else. But I do think that 1-2 punch is going to be good enough to get them 5th. But anyway, moving down again, 4th place, Sandburg. Once again, great 1-2 punch. They have twins who are going to lead the pack out there. But then their next 3, 4, 5, they just don't have it.
And I just want to interrupt you right here. Remember Sandburg in the regional today, the regional finish, I don't think they ran the twins. Yeah, because their first runner finished over 16 minutes. And, call me crazy, but if you want to have a chance of getting a trophy at the state meet, you can't run 16 minutes for 3 miles. That's like asking, that's ridiculous.
Steve, wait, can I ask you a question here? I know they didn't run, but why? Do you know? Does anybody know the real reason? Legit state teams, they come to compete, those regional meets, but clearly Sandburg's got something wrong. Are those guys hurt? Is it just their strategy? I'm not going to be biased here, but I think they might be scared of those top teams, like those St. Charles East, those Yorks, those Wheaton Royalville South. Anyone that isn't Sandburg really looks kind of dangerous there. Am I wrong?
And you know what? For a guy who spends all his time in the studio, with his head in the computer, that's actually a pretty good point you made. So, Johnson?
Yeah, no, for sure, Cam. So obviously, we had the after hours staff look into this. And it was a non-injury related reason, so we're not sure. It could have been academics. It could have been something else. We're really not sure as to why these two did not run. But, I mean, Steve, we've been thinking about this, and there's really no reason not to run them. But going on, third place, and this may come to a surprise to you as well, Steve, but I'm going to have to go St. Charles East here. And here's my reasoning. St. Charles East is a young team, Steve. They got Bobby Liking up front, but, he's just not consistent enough. Yeah, sure, his PR is 14.25. But today in the today in the regional meet, he ran over 15.20, and that's just not going to cut it as your number one man. You got Michael Wilson, only a sophomore. He's going to be great in the future. And you know what? St. Charles East, in the next 2 years, I think they might win a state championship. But this year, not their year, in my opinion. And, when you got teams like York and we in Warrenville South with all returning runners in their top, well, not all, but a lot of senior heavy in their top 7, they know what it's like to run in the state meet. And that gives them an upper edge. I just don't think St. Charles East has what it takes to win a state championship this year. So that's where I'm going to go number 2. I'm going to have to go York after we in Warrenville South beat them today in the regional. But, it's a small margin. We'll have to come back against sectionals after sectionals next week to see. And then, obviously, number 1, we in Warrenville South. Steve.
So, my rankings, they're similar. They're a little different. I think 5, call me crazy, but I think New Trier. You saw the way they ran at Palatine, at the Palatine Invitational. And they have a good pack. They ran against Hersey. In Hersey, they have the amazing 1-2 punch with Josh Methner. But after that, yeah, they have good athletes, but they don't have insane athletes. And New Trier, their pack, they got a good pack. And I think at the state meet, they can be a little dangerous. So I wouldn't count out New Trier. They've been slowly moving up a little, and I wouldn't count them out quite yet. Number 4, I like Sandburg. I don't know why they didn't run the Twins today, but, back when Sandburg won the state meet a couple of years ago, they won the state meet because over the summer, their entire team trained in Colorado. They got used to the altitudes. So when they came back to Illinois, racing was a piece of cake. So, I know that the Carl Sandburg coach, he knows what he has to do to win a state meet because he has done rigorous processes to win state meets in the past. And they might have not ran the Twins today, but I know that was planned not to run the Twins. So, Carl Sandburg, you got to look out for him. 3rd, sorry, Jen, I might have to, it follows a little bit of your path, but St. Charles East, I was watching some film on the Duquesne Conference Championship meet, and, they have those, St. Charles East, they had Bobby Liking and another runner, finished 1-2.
I believe it would be Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson.
Yeah,
Michael Wilson, thank you.
Young fella, too.
Thank you, yeah, pretty young. And
That's correct, yeah.
And so, but then there was Wheaton Warrenville South who finished behind them. And keep in mind, St. Charles East in that meet, they only won the conference title by 2 points. And it was razor thin. They have, St. Charles East has good runners, but their pack running isn't what Wheaton Warrenville South and what York has. And I just don't think in the state meet, when there's 50 runners running at the same pace as their runners, I don't think St. Charles East is going to be able to, keep up. So I think this year they will trophy, but I don't think it's going to be that great trophy, that, that first place trophy. That's all the teams go for. Second place, I have York. Like I said, we're going to have to do another, post-sectional, pre-state power ranking, but I think it's York right now. York, they were 1st, then they were 7th, moved to 4th, back to 2nd. And, York, they dipped a little in the beginning of the season, but is it really a York cross-country season if they don't? Think about it. Last year, York finished 11th at the Palatine Invitational, only to finish 4th at state. This year, we were
I might add, all of the top 7 there, they're returning. So that was all juniors, sophomores, or freshmen. There was not a single there's not a single senior in that top 7 last year. All of them come back. I mean, that's just a scary team. Go ahead, Steve.
is that a team coming out with almost all the guys that are running this year at the state meet ran at the state meet last year, so they have state meet experience. But this year we finished 4th at the Palatine Invitational, and that's a bigger improvement from 11th. And I think it puts York up for a good spot in that 1-2 place. And then also, it's a little weird oxymoron York kind of has with their pre-meet things. Think about Peoria early in the season. York never runs good at that meet. You know when they did run good in that meet? 2015. And you know what happened in 2015? York got 4th. And you know what? I am getting major things from the thing right now. We have an interview right now with top 7 runner Daniel Klisch.
All right, Steve. Here's what I'm gonna say. I think you should
Klisch
give your number 1 team. I think we all know who it's gonna be. Give your number 1 team. Tell us what you think, and then we'll see what happens. He's a busy man. He's a
very busy man. Very busy man. I just want to give a shout out to Mike Moe and Daniel Klisch, both recently committed to D1 schools.
Yes.
And Mile Split didn't really cover that, so we thought we'd give them a little shout out in here. Mike Moe committed to Mizzou, Daniel Klisch to Iowa. We are so proud of both these 2 York cross country runners. But
we just like to wish them well and good luck to them as they continue their career.
Because we have an interview with top 7 runner Daniel Klisch right now.
Daniel Klisch. It's the After Hours production. Let's hear what you got to say, buddy. Ask some questions.
Is this going to be closed or is this like a recording?
Dan, this is a recording right now. You are live.
You're live. You're live with After Hours podcast.
All right, Dan. How do you feel? First, how do you feel about being on After Hours?
I mean, it's obviously an honor being able to be on such a critically acclaimed podcast, up and coming, but obviously going to be one of the greats in the next coming 2 weeks. So it's an honor. It's an honor and privilege. Thank you, boys.
All right, Dan.
Yeah, no problem.
Dan, can you give us your what did you take away from the regional meet today?
I think personally, it taught me that I can, and as well as me and the boys, we can be the best team in the state. It's not going to come easy. We're racing against some great competition. The boys over at Wheaton Warrenville South, hell of a race from them, but I know that we can do it, so we just got to believe it now. We proved it to ourselves. Now we just got to go out there and get the job done when it matters.
And all right, we're just going to do a quick question before we get back to our other matters of business on the podcast. Looking forward for the sectional and state meet, what do you think York has to do to be successful in those 2 meets?
I think just improve on what we did today with our pack. I mean, we had 4 runners finish together, all the way back to our 6th. So I think if we can get Sam Ayers back, I think that would make we can have our last 5 finish together at where our 5 would be. So I think it's really dangerous once you start putting more people in the race and start jacking up team scores. I think that's what we got to do. I think that group just has to keep moving up, and by the end of the year, in the 2 weeks, we'll all be running together.
All right, thanks, Dan, so much for coming out. And then I understand that now I believe it's your birthday. So on behalf of After Hours Podcast,
We want to say happy birthday, Dan.
we wish you the birthday
to
you. Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday, dear
Klisch.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday from the After Hours podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Boys, I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Thanks for joining us,
Thanks,
Dan.
Dan.
Wish you the best of luck.
All right, so kind of what Klisch said, especially in the regional, York had 6 runners finish in front of Wheaton Warrenville South's 5th. And so that was with the dual meet like what it was today, of course the 5th runner was going to finish behind York's 6th. But in the state meet where all those runners are at the same time, that could be a 20-point difference in favor of York. So I think the bigger the meets get, the more favorable it looks for York competing with Wheaton Warrenville South.
All right, Steve, let's hear it. Who's the number 1, Steve? Give it.
I mean, number 1, I have Wheaton Warrenville South, but the times they are, as Bob Dylan says, the times they are changing. But I don't want to cut out one of the most important parts of the show, and that's sleeper pick.
Saturday.
It's sleeper pick Saturday. So Jensen, who is it?
So, I have had pretty good success so far. Brian Pratt, he finished third, I believe, for York.
Great.
A fantastic race.
Fantastic.
And,
great race from Brian.
as Cliff Kingsbury said, he just has, as Cliff Kingsbury said, describing Chase Edmonds, my guy, I think the same thing applies to Brian Pratt. He just had the eye of the tiger, Going in, he had the eye of the tiger. He wanted to win. Or he wanted to do really well. He wanted his team to win, and that's what he did. He finished third for York. I'm going to have to stick with Brian Pratt as a sleeper pick. I think he's going to continue to outdo his expectations. But also, Sam Ayers getting healthy. Watch out for him, Steve. You're over to you for your sleeper pick Saturday.
I was talking with some of the fans, and they got pretty upset about my sleeper pick Saturday choice, last week. But, this week, I think my sleeper pick, it goes out to Will Yazdik. I think Will Yazdik, he's a great runner. I wish he ran more. I know he's a big water polo guy, and, good for him. But Will Yazdik, especially today, he kicked it in that last bit of the race. He just hauled it, and it made a huge impact. Him, Kern, Mike Moe, they surged at the end. They beat that Wayne Warrenville guy. They didn't let that guy get him. And Will Yazdik was a major part of that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Will Yazdik could do at sectionals and state. But, I say Will Yazdik, but I also want to say Mike Moe, because Mike Moe was an integral part of that last-minute surge. So I think Mike Moe and Will Yazdik are my two sleeper pick Saturdays for today, because they kicked it, and they were an integral part in getting into narrowing that deficit that York was in the points. And so we're looking at the time, we're getting the lights flashing, all right. So it looks like
Steve, I think you gotta give me my sleeper pick Saturday.
Oh, all right. Now the
producer.
production staff. Now the production staff wants it.
Well, let's hear it.
All right, boys. I know you're gonna be upset. I know you're not gonna want it, but I'm a track boy at heart. You guys know it. I'm a track boy at heart. The production staff were big lax and track boys, so we're keeping it real here. I'm sticking with my track boy. You guys are gonna hate this, but Jacob Cluckhone, Wheaton Warrenville South. He's a great runner. The guy's a great track runner, and I think he's got it in him. I don't know what he's gonna do on next Saturday, but all
right, Cam, we are gonna cut you out. We're gonna cut you out right there, Cam. We are censoring that.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, never heard of him. What are you talking about?
What school was I talking about?
All right, so
oh my gosh, I've seemed to forget.
But
you've seemed to forgotten the purpose of the podcast. All right,
but as our obviously we're an unbiased news source, unlike MileSplit. But all right, so wrapping it up, I do believe we have one last interview from an ex-York cross-country runner. Sean McGregor, no relation to Conor McGregor. Actually asked quite often. But yeah, to my knowledge, no relation to Conor. Sean McGregor, an ex-cross-country runner, class of 2018. He was a solid runner. He was a great 1-2 punch with Charlie Kern back in the day. Cross-country and track. Great runner, and he's just got one last word for us before we end the show today.
Yo, what up? It's Sean McGregor, class of 2018. I love the After Hours podcast, Beat South, and Go Dukes.
Thank you guys for tuning in to After Hours. We got some recent donations for our next giveaway, so that's why we weren't able to do one for the regional tailgate. But catch us out sectional. We have some big items in the giveaway. Like, Jenny, these are big enough items. You could give it to your girlfriend for Christmas and your anniversary and her birthday, and that covers all three. That's the big ticket items I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So, or boyfriend, we don't like to discriminate here on After Hours. But we'd just like to thank you guys for tuning in. We hope to see you all at the next After Hours sponsored tailgate at the sectional meet at Lake Park. And, stay safe, York. It's a crazy world out there.
Signing off.
All right, signing off.
Crew.
Thank you.